Welcome to another edition of From the Press Box. My name is Rob Leonard. Joining me, of course, is my co-host and brother and award-winning sports writer, Tim Leonard. Hello, Tim. How are you doing today?
Greetings, brother. I am outstanding. How about yourself?
I'm okay. Another week in sports. We're getting a little bit closer to baseball, but I'm not sure. I actually want to start with something that's actually going on. They actually in Great Britain, your Premier League, Liverpool clinched the Premier League title, brother, on Thursday.
Yes. How did I know you would want to start with this, brother?
I don't know. Liverpool, home of the Beatles, home of Cherry and the Pacemakers,
Yes.
home of a pretty darn good soccer team, home of David Bedford, our friend.
A team that you claim to root for that you don't even know one player on the team.
Doesn't matter. My support. You know the way British soccer is. It's about your support of the team, not about if you actually know anything.
Yes, brother.
So,
let me know when that Liverpool jersey comes in the mail for you.
No, I'm not wearing a Liverpool jersey. Some Everton toughie baddie will maybe want to beat me up or something.
Not in the United States, brother.
Yeah, sure. Anyway, Liverpool won the Premier League title, brother. I thought that was going to be Tottenham's thing.
No.
No, why not?
No, because Liverpool was like 20-something points ahead of second place Manchester City. It was just...
Brother, what happened to you? You're talking off mic here.
No, I'm not.
You are. That's good.
I was talking the same way.
No, you aren't. You were leaning over. I can see you today. I'm seeing you on our video as we do the show.
Well, anyway, Liverpool was 20-something points ahead of Manchester City when the season was suspended, and it was just a matter of time. It came a little bit faster because Chelsea beat Manchester City on Thursday. And, that was unexpected and also not good for my Tottenham Hotspur. But that win by Chelsea and that loss by Manchester City clinched the title for Liverpool. So congratulations to Liverpool. Their first ever Premier League title in the 30 years that the Premier League has been in existence. So, reason to be happy, but let's not get crazy here. It is their first title in 30 years. So...
Well, that's a good thing.
Supposedly one of the top 6 teams, and let's face it, they've been spending a boatload of cash in the last couple of seasons. So, yeah, it doesn't exactly surprise me that they won a title, but woohoo!
Well, that is one thing about British soccer and other soccer too. They don't have a salary cap, so
no, there's no salary cap. Right. There's the financial fair play rule. And that states that your expenditures have to be within a certain level of the money that you take in. So you can't just have like an oil baron come in and spend a couple $1 billion or pounds or whatever monetary unit you want to use, and only take in say a couple 100,000. So that prevents the clubs from being the playthings of the ultra wealthy.
But that is something different than if you had a salary cap. It's just
if you had salary cap, a lot of stuff would be different because the salaries that the players get paid is one thing, but I'm talking about how players in European football or soccer are acquired in a different way than they are in the United States. If you want a player in Europe, you purchase him. You make an offer, a monetary offer to whichever club that player is playing for. And if that club chooses to accept the offer, then you buy the player. There are no trades. Trades are a very foreign concept. Every once in a long while, a player will go to another team with another player involved, but usually there is also cash involved. So the extra player is what's known as a make weight. So if let's say a player is valued at 80 million, and Team A has that player and they value him at 80 million, well, Team B says, well, we'll give you 50 million and we'll give you this other player who we think is worth about 30 million. And what do you say? So
good point. Good point.
That's a way for a team to maybe save a little bit of money and not have to make such a big splash. Like they love to say splash the cash over there. But like Virgil van Dijk, for example, brother, your central defender at Liverpool, £100 million. I mean, it's an astronomical amount for a defender. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great player, but £100 million for a defender. So
that reminds me of
that's just one of the many massive expenditures that Liverpool has made in the last 3 years.
It reminds me when Bowie Kuhn prevented Charles O'Finley from selling was Vita Blue and Joe Rudy, and I forgot who the other person was.
Gene Tennis, I believe, was the third
Gene
one.
Tennis, yeah. He refused to allow him to do it, and that's a little different, And
well,
I can understand each side.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's how business is done in the Premier League and La Liga and Serie A and the Bundesliga, everything over there. If you want a player in Europe or Asia, then it's all about money.
Does the player get any percentage of that money?
As far as I know, the player gets a small percentage of the fee, but usually, not even usually, pretty much always, his contract will be renegotiated by the team that acquires him. So he'll wind up with more money because chances are, if somebody is moving for a fee, then he will receive a raise as part of the deal.
Well, he hopes so. By the way, brother,
if not, then he might not go. He might refuse to go because the player has to be satisfied as well. It's not just the club that sells him. If a player is about to be sold and the club that's purchasing his rights or his contract, and they say, well, we're not going to give you a raise, and the player's like, well, what the hell do I want to move for? Forget you.
I wasn't sure what type of rights the players have. That's good to see they have some.
Yeah, they have some rights. Not much, but some.
Okay, so we know Liverpool won the Premier. What about the FA Cup, brother? Since we're in the soccer mode right now, might as well do it now.
Well, the FA Cup, the draw was yesterday, Sunday, for the semifinals, and it's four of the big clubs, the four that you expected to win. Manchester United will face Chelsea in one semifinal, and Manchester City will face Arsenal in the other semifinal. So. Those semifinal matches will be played July 18th and 19th, and the final of the FA Cup will be played on August 1st. All of those games will be played at Wembley Stadium, and of course we do have to give a caveat that assuming coronavirus allows all of this to happen, because nothing is set in stone these days. But when you're looking at these games, that Sheffield United was one of the teams that was involved in the quarterfinals. Newcastle United, Manchester United beat Watford, which is in last place, but had advanced in the FA Cup. So the teams that were expected to win this weekend all did win. It was a little closer than some wanted. Arsenal beat Sheffield United 2-1. Chelsea beat Leicester City 1-0, and Leicester is actually in third place right now in the league. Manchester City beat Newcastle United 2-0, and like I said, Manchester United actually needed extra time to beat Norwich 2-1. Norwich is terrible. I mean, that's an embarrassing result for Manchester United, but what are you going to do? So we got that to look forward to. The FA Cup is a very tradition-rich tournament. I personally don't care about it, but I know a lot of my friends in the UK are big defenders, because a lot of teams play their reserves and their bench guys, and that's when they'll take the opportunity to look at an 18 or 19-year-old that's coming up in the system. So they don't play their regular teams until usually the semifinal or the finals. So. Right. It's I don't know. It's lost its luster a bit, but still, the tournament's over 100 years old, and there is a lot of tradition to it. So
sort of like the NIT, a different version of the NIT, in its own way.
I guess there are some comparisons that could be made there. Yeah.
Okay. One more thing, as we're still in the soccer mode, brother. Saturday, I'm going through the channels, and I turn on channel 2. And it says new. Anytime on my cable system, I have Optimum, and it says new if it's a new program. And the NWSL, the National Women's Soccer League, had a new game on CBS. It wasn't on Lifetime, and it wasn't on one of the cable channels. It was on CBS. So obviously they need programming, but it's a nice thing to see that women's soccer is actually on a major network. The North Carolina Courage took on the Portland Thorns in Utah, and they finished a 1-1 draw. So they also had no people in the stands, but at least it was a live game, and it was. I watched it just to see, okay, what's it look like without fans there? Are they running into each other? A lot of sweating with the soccer players too, not just the football players and then the other players. So it was nice to see. You miss fans. I mean, the fans really help it, and I know the Thorns are actually pretty popular.
Yes, I do have to correct myself, brother. The Courage did win that game 2-1. That was my mistake.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
My error. Okay. No, you read it correctly. I put it wrong on the notes, so that was my mistake.
Anyway,
but the other big deal thing out of that match was that before the game, all of the players kneeled for the national anthem.
Yep.
So that was another thing that came out of that game, and that goes back to Megan Rapinoe, who kind of famously joined Colin Kaepernick by kneeling on the sidelines, and that caused the U.S. women's national team and actually the national team, the United States Soccer Federation, to actually put a rule in that all players must stand for the national anthem. And now the U.S. Soccer has basically said, look, we're not going to bother with that rule anymore.
Well, I think also
Rapinoe was very happy with she tweeted about all the players kneeling.
I'm sure they kneeled, but the thing is, was it seen on television? That's always
it was. It was.
I missed the beginning of the game, so okay. Yeah, that's the thing. If television isn't actually showing him doing it, it's a nice thing to say and do, but you're missing half your audience that you're aiming for if no one sees it. So. I understand why they did it, support and everything else, but you also want people to know about it, and usually they cut out the national anthem on all the games and all that stuff. So unless it's a little sidebar or something.
The other thing is, and I say this as somebody who supports the kneeling and supports the protests that are going on, but why are we playing the national anthem at an empty arena? That's
a good point.
I don't really understand. I mean, like I said, I fully support the protest, but at the same time, I don't understand why are we playing the national anthem at
where it started.
Where there's nobody there.
The national anthem started in World War II, and it never ended. I mean, the playing of the national anthem has never ended. If you were to go to a game and it wasn't there, I'm not sure.
I don't know how many people would notice, brother. I really don't.
I agree. I think how many people are on the line to get beer.
That's what I'm saying. People before the games, they're getting the stuff that they need for the game, whether it's food, drinks, whatever, going to the bathroom, and then all of a sudden everything stops because the song plays.
Right.
And I really don't think that people would be bothered one way or another if sports just suddenly said, "Hey, you know what? We're not going to do this anymore."
I wouldn't be surprised that ever happened.
It wouldn't bother me in the least. Would not bother me in the least.
I agree. It's just something that has never ended. It's one of those things that starts and it's like, okay, we're just going to keep doing this. And after World War II ended, they kept going. And then, there are moments. It's nice to hear it. The return after September 11th, the game you covered of the Mets, was a big deal for the national anthem. Places like that, but a lot of times people don't pay attention to it, and I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing. I'm just saying that people are arriving still when the national anthem
it's become a routine. It's become a routine thing that people don't necessarily pay attention to very much, and very few people treat it as some sort of a tribute. It's just something that happens before the game. And like I said, most people are kind of scrambling around. I got to get to my seat, and the game's about to start. And all of a sudden, they break out the song. And if you have any kind of respect or class, then you stop what you're doing and take two or 2.5 minutes or whatever it is, and listen to the song and pay respect to it, and that's that. So
I love the fact that there are people who don't know this take their hats off during the national anthem. I mean, that's a whole other thing.
Let's wait till later to get into the idiots in the world.
I know. There are a lot of idiots in the world.
We're only 15
minutes
into the
brother,
show. Let's wait.
We've been talking about Major League Baseball now for a while, and I thought they would have set it up at least 2 weeks ago, but it seems like that July 23rd is going to be opening day for Major League Baseball for this year only, hopefully, which is interesting. You got the Yankees going to be playing the Nationals, which is not a bad thing. We'll have to see what happens with the coronavirus.
It's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a tough game.
Yeah.
Assuming like all of this is assuming that we actually get there, and that's a big assumption. We're talking almost a month from now, and what is going to happen to the various teams in that month, and how many cases are there going to be? I mean, there are going to be cases, and that is something that if somebody is living in a Pollyanna world and thinks that somehow coronavirus is going to care that somebody plays Major League Baseball, then you got more problems than I know what to do with. But there will be cases. It's just a matter of how many cases there are and how baseball can adjust to them that will determine whether or not that, A, we even start the season, and B, whether or not we can actually get through the season. And I mean, I'll tell you right now, if I had to say, will there be a World Series this year in Major League Baseball? My answer is no. And I am very cynical about baseball's plans. I'm very pessimistic in terms of their ability to get through the season and be able to maintain the competitive balance, because that's one thing that has been on the minds of pretty much everybody involved with not only baseball but all sports in general, is how do you maintain a competitive balance? And if a player, let's use just for an example, Garrett Cole, big time pitcher. What happens if he gets coronavirus? Now, if he gets it during the season, you're talking about a season that's basically going to be 9 weeks. All right, because we're talking 60 games. It's about 65 to 66 days for the season. He's going to be out for 2 weeks.
Okay.
So coronavirus by itself will knock him out for 22% of the season at a minimum. All right, and then it's a matter of, will he be able? How long is it going to take him to get back to being ready to pitch? What kind of condition will he be in? And I can tell you, as somebody who had coronavirus, once the 2 weeks is over, you're probably still going to have a cough. You're going to have other issues going on, even though you might be healed. But all of those are issues, and how much, how quickly can somebody recover?
I also think, brother, has Major League Baseball said how many players per team there will be? Meaning that we know there's no minor league baseball this year, so why not make a 40-man roster or even a 50-man roster in this case? Maybe they don't sit in the dugout all together, but you have them there. So if people do get sick, they could say, okay, we have 40 more players or whatever to take care of this. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, you have all these players there, but I'm just talking about the fact that, okay, we have 50 players, so we will have enough players to get through. People get sick.
They said that last week, brother. They said that last week. They're going to start the season with a 30-man roster,
right?
And then I don't.
That's
recall
too little in my case. That's be too little.
It's 5 more than usual, so I think it's a pretty good. It's a pretty good number. But then it goes down to, I don't remember the time frame, but it'll go down to either 28 or 27, and then it'll go back to 25. But
really?
I don't know that we get back to a level where we can say 25 is an acceptable number, because again, if a team, let's say a team loses 3 players, all right, But let's say all three of those players are starters. Let's say the Yankees lose to coronavirus. Aaron Judge, Garrett Cole, and I don't know, DJ LeMahieu. Well, what do you do? Who do you plug in there? Who you're now putting Mike Tauchman out in right field for Judge. I don't even know who you're putting in for Cole, but what a massive drop off that is, whoever it is. What are you doing with DJ LeMahieu? You maybe plugging Gleyber Torres back at second base, and
I think, brother, you have to look at it as the sense that, let's say it wasn't coronavirus. Let's say Aaron Judge, sprained his ankle. Let's say Garrett Cole threw out his arm or something. You got to think of it the same way where you'd replace him. Now, the coronavirus
but you can't,
is a different situation.
You can't look at it like that way because you don't know if they have infected anybody else, and that is the danger of this whole thing.
That's why
you can quarantine and isolate, but you don't know how much of an impact any player getting it is going to have on his teammates.
Well, that's why you'd have more players this year, because then you'd have more players to pick from if, let's say, a couple of more people did get sick. And I would assume that each player is going to get checked every day.
Every other day, I believe it is.
Every other day. So that's pretty darn good. It's better than what our government's doing. The testing is not there, and that's why we keep having problems in Florida and Texas and all these other
Arizona. And think about this, brother. Remember just like even a month or so ago when baseball was doing all this talking about playing in a bubble. And where were the places they were talking about playing in the bubble?
Arizona,
Florida, and some people were even saying maybe Texas. So,
right.
I mean, Rob Manfred, he definitely got lucky that he didn't go along with that plan. But I think the key to what baseball is trying to do here is they need to be flexible, and that's something that I think has been built into this agreement that the Major League Baseball and the players have had. Is that Rob Manfred, the commissioner, is going to be able to move games if baseball needs to move games, because there still is the possibility that a governor could decide to shut down the state. And that includes baseball. Baseball is not necessarily going to get a free pass if a governor says, hey, we got to shut down, especially in a place like Florida or Arizona where the cases are running rampant and the virus is just spreading like wildfire. They might just say, we can't do this here. And we don't need, even though there's not going to be fans in the stands, we don't need this distraction. And we can't guarantee with all of the cases that we have that the various people you're going to run into on a daily basis, be it hotel workers or food preparers or servers, we can't guarantee that these people are going to be infection-free. So Rob Manfred might just say, look, we're going to move the Florida Marlins up to Yankee Stadium while the Yankees are on the road, and we're going to move the Tampa Bay Rays to Citi Field when the Mets are on the road. And there might wind up being a whole lot of juggling going on so that they can put teams that are in the middle of cities or states with pandemics, so they can put them in safer areas to actually get the season done.
Yeah, like I said, I think part of this whole thing with all the leagues, I think they want to get the season done and over with and worry about next season at another time.
Right, but it's wishful thinking.
It is wishful thinking, but that's the only thinking they have right now, because how else can you do it? If you don't have wishful
season.
Yeah, but they're not going to. There's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of things involved. I mean, it's not just we're going to cancel the season.
Here's the what baseball is doing to prevent the spread of COVID-19. The players will take their temperatures using a personal thermometer twice in the day before they even go to the stadium. So before Brett Gardner enters Yankee Stadium, he will have taken his own temperature twice. Then when they get to the stadium, they will be screened again. So that's the third time a temperature is being taken. If a player's temperature registers at 100.4 degrees or higher, they will be tested for COVID-19. Like I said before, players and coaching staff will be tested every other day, no matter what. And there will be social distancing measures. They will have lockers being 6 feet apart. Inactive players will be sitting in the stands, and they will have apparently strict boarding and deplaning rules. So
and what about Timothy? And this is something if you were out there being a baseball writer, how are the baseball writers going to cover? Are they going to be in another state? Are they just going to watch the games at home and then they're going to have maybe a press conference that they'll be on guests I don't know SNY and that's where they'll pick up their quotes.
I can tell you how it functions in the Premier League, because that to me is the closest model I can see for what's going to happen. After games in the Premier League, reporters will have a press conference with the manager. And there's a big room. It's like a theater. And all the journalists go in. The manager sits at a table in the front of the room. And I went to a couple of Tottenham press conferences. There are about 40 or 50 reporters. And they're all firing questions at the manager. He answers them. Then the player, or the press goes back to the media room, and there is an interviewer from the club who talks to the players after the game. And all of the press, they hold up their recorders to these television sets that are broadcasting the interview with the players. And I was astounded when I saw this. And when all of that was over, I said to one of the reporters, I was like, "When do you go to talk to the players?" And he looked at me like I had three heads. He said, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, I said, "I'm from the States." I said, when the game is over, I said, there's a 10-minute buffer zone, and then we go into the dressing room and we talk to the players and we interview them. And he says, "That doesn't happen here." He goes, "The only way you can talk to the players after a game is if you can get them to stop as they're pulling their cars out of the parking lot." And I was astounded. But in the era of COVID-19, I could see that being the solution to professional sports and interviews, is to have one representative from the team, and that person obviously would have to get tested as much as the players, but have that player or have that person do interviews with a couple of players, and maybe the press does a mass interview after the game in some sort of a room, and maybe they could bring players in there as well. But I could see it being a one-on-one interview after the game, and then the press just basically has to make do with whatever quotes they get. It's not going to be a perfect situation, I can tell you that.
And of course, you don't want that to turn into something permanent, the way the national anthem became permanent.
Exactly, that's a very dangerous thing because I mean that's I think one of the things that American fans like so much about their sports is they get a chance to really know the athletes, and the reason for that is the media, and the media being able to do not just game stories and not just Aaron Judge hit a couple of home runs, and you have to be able to get to know these guys as human beings more, so that you can write a more informed kind of a story. And it doesn't happen over in England that way, and that's why there's so many stories over there. It's all supposition and assumption and speculation, and that leads to poor journalism. It's not even journalism. It's just a lot of garbage, really. So that I'm hoping. I'm hoping it's only a one season thing, or like I said, if they can work something out where they bring the players, like a couple of players after a game, into a room and just do a mass interview, that would maybe be the easiest way to do it. Or I don't know, maybe I don't know, try to get some sort of video system where they can ask questions, or I don't know, but there's got to be an answer, and obviously they're going to have to figure it out pretty quick, because we got games coming up in less than a month.
Now, can the players be ready in a month? I mean, they really didn't have obviously really didn't. Well, they had a little bit of a spring training. Yeah,
but I mean, what happened in spring training and from then until now? I mean, let's face it, that's shut down in March. So, I'm sure there are players who have packed on a little pandemic weight, like a lot of Americans have. So they're going to have to. Can they be ready? Yeah, of course. There's not a player alive who doesn't think spring training is too long, and there's probably not a pitcher alive who thinks spring training isn't long enough. But the field players will certainly be ready. The pitchers, from what I'm hearing or reading, there are a lot of managers who say that their starters won't go more than 4 innings in their first start because they want to be able to stretch them out little by little. So, like look for maybe 4 innings, maybe 5 at the absolute most. I think it's going to depend on a pitch count, but I don't think any pitcher is going to throw more than about 50 pitches in his first start. And then maybe that'll go up to 60 or 65 in the second start, and maybe about 75 or 80 in the third start.
But you know what could happen, brother? No. Remember when we had Bill Madden on, and he talked about the new thing in baseball where you bring in your pitcher for like an inning, and then you bring in your starter afterwards.
Well, yeah, I mean that's
like
an opener. An open. I mean, bullpens are going to be more vital than ever in this 60 game season, because let's face it, every game is going to be important, and you're looking at a scenario where if you can get to 35 wins, 35 and 25 is going to be a good record, and that's probably going to be a playoff type record. So every game is going to take on more importance because you're not even playing half as many games as you usually would.
No.
So the difference between 33 wins and 35 wins could be a playoff spot, and that makes every game more important. That makes bullpens more important. And you're not going to see managers giving up on a game because they're not going to have that kind of wiggle room to just say, yeah, you know what, let me just throw in my last bullpen guy, let him pitch 4 innings today because we're getting killed. They're not going to have that luxury. They need to take pretty much. See, the thing is a 162 game schedule. A manager is rarely just managing that day. He's managing for the next day and the next 2 or 3 days because he needs to be able to get his bullpens some rest, or he needs to be able to say, all right, hey, Aaron Judge looks tired. I'm going to give him a day off. It's going to be a sprint from the start, and if you wind up in a 2-week span going like 3-9, your season could be over. So right. You need to avoid losing streaks of any kind of duration, and by that I mean like you got to avoid a 7 or 8 game losing streak. Otherwise, like I said, your season's pretty much done, and you need to win games quickly because it's like I said, it's going to be a sprint, and the teams that get off to the good starts are going to be the teams that are in the driver's seat as far as getting to the postseason.
It reminds me of the '99 NBA season, where they had the strike and then they came back 48 games, and Knicks get in seed number 8 and they end up going to the finals. And it was a sprint for them, and they actually played very good that season, considering.
Yeah, crazy stuff happens, brother. Right
now at MSG, they're remembering Spree. They're playing all these games that Spreewell did really well in.
He is a Jimmy Dolan favorite.
Well, it's watching Spreewell and Patrick Ewing working together, and it was it didn't happen in the playoffs, obviously, because Patrick Ewing got hurt, and the fact that they went to the finals without him was, to me, amazing. But they had a pretty decent team, though, and plus it was a short season. So
right.
You're listening to 90. Well, let me just do the thing, brother. We are listening to 90.3 WHPC. The voice of Nassau Community College. You're listening to From the Press Box here every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. This show becomes a podcast later on all the podcast services, but we start at Spreaker.com. I am Rob Leonard. Joining me, of course, is my brother and award-winning sports writer, Tim Leonard. And, brother, the NBA, I don't know what's going on with them. I keep expecting them not to have a season at all now. I don't know why.
Well, for the same reason as baseball. It's, and let's face it, basketball, they are committed to having the rest of their season in Florida. Well, where is the one place that nobody should want to be right now?
Florida.
10,000 cases a day. And,
yep.
and my friend and former sports writer Dave Rosenbaum lives in Florida. He told me it's probably 100,000 cases a day. He says there's not nearly enough tests to get everybody tested. And apparently that's the thinking down there, is that they have actually 10 times the cases that are being reported. So think about that: 100,000 cases per day. That's insanity.
It's incredible,
and that's where basketball is going to drop their league. So, like I said before about Rob Manfred, was very lucky that he didn't commit to that plan about the bubble in Arizona and Texas and Florida. Well, the NBA committed to it a while ago, and now they're in a situation where they don't really have an alternative to that plan. It's not like you can just come up to New York and say, all right, we're going to drop our league in New York City. Well, are you going to be able to get that many hotel rooms? I don't know. Maybe you could, but there's no way to guarantee it at this point.
Well, I'm sure they can. It's the NBA. They figure out things like that. But you're right. They're in Florida now. It's almost like where else can they go? Where else could they play? The Walt Disney World setup is perfect for what they want to do, but it's also in a state that's leading the way in cases right now.
Right, because, exactly. And that's the danger is how many again, players will come down with the virus, but it's going to be how many and how many others they infect. And that's again, it comes down to the importance of players realizing that they need to be responsible and they need to isolate themselves, and they can't go out and they can't, you can't just say, oh, I'll just go out to a bar or do, Florida hasn't closed anything.
I'll go to the beach.
Well, anything, whatever it is, they have to understand that by doing something like that, and granted, it's something that under normal circumstances would be something minor, but doing something like that is at this point the height of selfishness, and they can't do it. But will every player be able to say that, or are we going to be in a situation where you're going to have some stupid 22 or 23-year-old who thinks he's indestructible, and he goes out with a couple of his boys and says, oh, hey, let's go get some drinks or let's go meet some girls or whatever, and 2 days later, boom, hey, we got coronavirus. And
agree,
how many coaches, trainers, whatever help staff that they have with them, how many of those people are going to get infected from these lunkheads who decided they had to go out and have
also, if someone gets sick, who do you replace them with? That's the other thing.
I mean, they have the D League players. Every NBA team has a D League team, so they would be able to replace it. But again, I mean, you're talking massive drop-off in talent for the most part. The guys who are on NBA rosters are on NBA rosters for a reason. There is very little overlap in terms of, why is a guy the second or second to last or last guy on an NBA bench as opposed to why is this guy in the D League? There are reasons for it, and it's very rare that you wind up with a guy in the D League who doesn't actually belong in the D League.
Actually, it's G League, brother.
Sorry, Gatorade. Gatorade. That's right. My bad. I messed up my letter.
D League used to be Developmental League.
Right.
And then they said, hey, maybe we get some sponsorship out of this.
Right. And they did. So good for them. Good for them for making that money.
So the Knicks aren't going to be part of the rest of the season. That's the beauty of it for Knicks fans, at least.
Well, that's good. They get to isolate. And apparently there will be some practices. I mean, that's what I've heard, is that the teams that aren't going to be playing will still be getting together to do some training, work on their skills. Obviously, those teams need to work on their skills desperately, and very much so the Knicks. But we're gonna see what happens there. I don't know how strict these practices are going to be. I don't even know who the Knicks coach is going to be, because we're still waiting for that to get settled. And Tom Thibodeau is seen as the favorite for the job, but I don't know when we're going to get an announcement or how long it's going to take. I know Kenny Atkinson is interviewing for the job. Jeff Van Gundy has been mentioned as a potential candidate, and there's several people who have been mentioned as potential candidates.
I would love to see Jeff, but I think he enjoys being a commentator too much. But I'd love to see him. I'd like to see him come back, maybe not with the Knicks, but just somewhere.
I think Jeff Van Gundy. I think Jeff Van Gundy understands that his job as an analyst while he clearly doesn't make as much as he would as an NBA coach, he still makes an extraordinarily good living, and he doesn't have nearly the agita that comes with being a coach. He shows up, he watches games, he does his research, he does. I mean, he works. I'll give Jeff Van Gundy credit for that. I know he does the job probably as well as anybody in terms of studying and knowing the league. But does he have that agita of especially working for the Garden and all that comes along with that? But also in terms of NBA preparation, and if your team isn't good, then not knowing if you're going to have a job next week. He doesn't have any of that. Jeff Van Gundy is widely acknowledged as the best color guy in the NBA. So he's like I said, he's clearly not making nearly what an NBA coach would make. But if I'm him, I have peace of mind. I have all the money that I need. Why am I Jeff Van Gundy's a guy from upstate New York. How much money does he need?
No, I mean, but he originally said after when he left the Knicks that he wanted to see his kids grow up, and he wasn't going to do anything until I guess they got to college, and I assume they're in college now. It's been a while, but maybe they're already past.
If I was Jeff, I'd be done with NBA coaching and just.
I know it's too bad.
Do my job for TNT for as long as they'll have me.
But Tim, it's sad in a way because I thought he was a really good coach.
He is a good coach, but he doesn't need the agita.
But he didn't stay long enough to make a true mark on the league, the way other coaches have.
If I'm Jeff Van Gundy, the only way I take a job is if it's an established quality team. And that's not the New York Knicks. I'm not taking that job again.
Well, if I was to do the Knicks, I would demand a lot more control about, maybe who you pick is your draft picks or your trades or something. Those are all organizational decisions. And you just hired a new president. He kept Scott Perry on as the GM, or vice president, whatever. But all of those decisions are being made by other people who are fairly new in their positions. So you're not going to get that kind of power. Sure, I know that, but I'm just saying that's what I would want. I mean,
of course, that's why I don't think you're not going to get it with the Knicks.
That's why I don't think he'd get it with the Knicks. And do you want it either? I mean, he left the Knicks for a reason.
Exactly.
We all know why. And to go back would be, I think, a cool thing because I'd like to see him coach again. But I think he can go other places. I mean, the Nets maybe could have signed him at one point.
The Nets probably should have. The Nets probably should have. And when they let Kenny Atkinson go, to me, Van Gundy should have probably been a very strong selection as a possible successor. And that would have been a pretty good spot for him. You have two established stars that are going to be there for several more years. So you have that base of talent. But again, if I'm Van Gundy, I'm like Lakers or Golden State. Steve Kerr's not leaving anytime soon.
No.
Somebody along those lines. Or the Celtics have a good young roster. I wouldn't even say yes to the Milwaukee Bucks because Giannis is probably going to leave in a couple of years. And then where are you? Then if he leaves, now you're a 40-win team at the most. So it would take a special situation if I'm Van Gundy to get me back on the bench. And I don't know that situation exists.
Okay, some players in the NBA are saying, "Hey, I'm not playing," which I didn't know they can do if you have a contract.
Yeah, no, that's well. I mean, they're basically saying, "Don't pay me." Brooklyn Nets forward Wilson Chandler has just told the team the other day that he will not be joining them for the remainder of the season, and that I think is going to be something that happens a little more often before the teams get down to Orlando. But Chandler said he wants to spend more time with his family. That includes 3 children and the grandmother who raised him, rather than finishing the season in the NBA's bubble. Chandler he's been a bit of an enigma for the Nets. He was suspended for 25 games before the season started for testing positive for a banned substance. We don't really know what the banned substance was. But more recently, before the season was suspended, he started those last 3 games for the Nets, and the Nets went 3-0 in those games, including a win over the Lakers at the Staples Center. So Chandler, he only averaged 5.9 points and 4.1 rebounds per game, and shot 40% from the field. But he's a veteran guy. He knows the game, and obviously he's a good guy to have around. He'll be missed, maybe not from a statistical point of view as much as from a leadership, mentorship point of view. But other players who have already told the NBA that they're not going, or they've told their teams. Trevor Ariza, might remember him being a former Knick, but he's on the Trailblazers now. He told them he's not coming back. Washington Wizards player Davis Bertrands, Avery Bradley of the Los Angeles Lakers, and Willie Cauley-Stein, the center from the Dallas Mavericks, all have told their teams that they will not come back when the season resumes. The teams are scheduled to begin arriving in Orlando on July 7th, which is a little more than a week away. And the Nets will resume their season against Robbie Randazzo's Orlando Magic on July 21st. Robbie's my boy.
Well, I mean, that's a good thing. It's the 21st or 31st, brother?
31st, brother. What did I say?
Oh, okay. He said 21st.
Oh, I thought it was 31st. My bad.
Anyway, it's kind of interesting that a player can say, well, I don't want to play the rest of the season. What happens if, you're on a crappy team and you're afraid of getting injured and you're going to be a free agent? And you say, well, it's 20 games left. I don't want to play anymore. You don't have to pay me. I guess that's possible.
Two things, brother. One, there's 8 or 9 games left, so nobody's got 20 games left.
I know, but I'm just saying in the future.
I'm
not talking about this season.
Oh, well, I was going to say, 2, the crappy teams aren't playing.
I know that, but I'm just saying, like, what's
to stop that? Nothing is to stop that. If a player, that's basically a player quitting on the team. If he wanted to do that, then the team would just say, all right, fine, we won't pay you. We'll just suspend you. If they wanted to do that, it's career suicide. But in this case, with the pandemic, the league expected this because who was it? One of the players, I can't remember which player it was. But one of the players, his mother died from COVID-19. So the NBA knew that there was going to be players who were saying, look, I'm not getting involved in this because look what happened. So, it's from that standpoint, I don't think it's a surprise that there are players who are saying, you know what, this is this is something I don't want to do because I, my family could wind up, Karl Anthony Towns, who's a mega star in the NBA. His mom died from coronavirus. And I'm actually surprised if he doesn't say, well, actually, no, he's on the Timberwolves. I don't think they're part of the teams that are coming back. But, if they were, it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case, that he would just say, all right, you know what, I'm not coming back.
That's it's an interesting way you can just walk away. I didn't know you can do that. That's,
Well, yeah, like I said, it's you're basically, the team is allowed to, the team won't pay the player. So from that standpoint,
I know that, but
it's kind of like you're voiding your contract in some way, but it's like you're voiding it with permission. So if the player has time left on the contract, he'll just come back next season and pick up where they left off. If a player like Wilson Chandler, he's on a 1-year deal, so basically he's not going to be a Net anymore unless the Nets sign him again next season. But obviously that will be up to the team. But he Wilson Chandler has played his last NBA game this season, and that's his decision. So and he's made it because of health reasons, and I can't say I blame him, but it's going to be a case by case basis.
I'm not shocked or anything. I'm just, like I said, I was a little surprised you can do that. That's all. Well, anyway, what's the deal with the NHL, brother? When's this? They're supposed to start soon, aren't they?
I don't know. Good question, brother. Hit me with a little shocker there.
I'm just checking their site right now.
Well, we got the NHL draft lottery that happened. I believe it was Friday. So we had that. Interesting.
Oh, okay. I thought the NHL had announced. They were coming back soon too.
Apparently, the NHL has determined, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. the NHL has determined that the number one selection in the draft will be made by one of the teams participating in the play-in postseason round. And then there will be a second lottery after the qualification round. This is idiotic. Wow.
Okay, well.
What is Gary Bettman thinking?
Well, a lot of people ask that question. That's a ongoing question with Gary Bettman.
So we still don't know. We still don't know who will have the number one pick in the NHL draft. Wow, this is we're gonna have to talk more about this next week, brother.
We're gonna have to look that up more.
This is stupid.
Let's quickly talk about the Jets, brother. It seems like Jamal Adams felt a little love from Adam Gase.
Well,
this week
that Jamal Adams felt a little bit of booty smooching from Adam Gase and Joe Douglas in the last couple of days. But I don't know that he's feeling love, because I think the only love that he wants to feel is cash. So from that standpoint, love, maybe, but he wants the kind of green that he won't be wearing on Sunday. He wants the kind of green that he can put in his pocket.
Okay, so, that's usually the type of green that most people like, but
Yeah, but Adam Gase, they had a conference call with the media. Adam Gase, essentially said, we love Jamal Adams. We don't want to trade Jamal Adams. Absolutely, positively want him back on the team next season. But that was pretty much it. That everything was positive. We want him around. He's a great guy. We think he's a Hall of Famer. And yes, I want Jamal. That was his big quote. So I don't know that this is any kind of big news, because what coach wouldn't want Jamal Adams? But at the same time, it's a lot of lip service right now. And defensive coordinator Greg Williams also had a media call. And he also had nice things to say about Jamal Adams, which again was he claimed that he has Jamal Adams' back. I don't know how a defensive coordinator can do that, but he had nice things to say about him as well, which again is no surprise.
Okay, I found an article on NHL.com, brother, by Tom Galletti.
Galletti, that's my old guy from the Bergen Record.
Is it?
Yeah, he works for NHL.com now.
Okay, yeah. Well, it says here, Phase 3 of training camps is scheduled to begin on July 10th. That's the start of training camps.
Right.
Everyone is supposed to get tested. They're talking about the fact that 17% of our players are outside North America, and 56% of our players weren't in the markets in which their teams played. About COVID-19. And Phase 4 will begin with the Stanley Cup qualifiers, which will include 16 teams playing 8 best-of-5 series and a round-robin among the top 4 teams by points in each conference to determine seeding for the Stanley Cup playoffs. The 8 teams that advance from the best-of-5 series will join the top 4 teams from the conference in the playoffs. So,
yes, and the other thing that you have to remember, brother, is there are going to be a decent, if not significant number of players coming back to the United States from Europe. Now, what kind of issue is that going to be?
Well, that's true.
We know that there is now a block on Americans going to Europe from several European countries. I'm not sure what the policy is for Europeans flying here. I'm assuming that right now there probably isn't any sort of an issue, but maybe there is left over from when Italy and Spain were spreading coronavirus like crazy.
And what about New York and New Jersey? Well, Jersey, I don't think is going to be in the playoffs, but New York will be. Both the New York teams. Yeah. The 14-day waiting period that Governor Cuomo is trying to do.
Yeah, the quarantine from other states.
Yeah, you can't do that with
you're going to have
players.
to do it. Well, I think what they're going to do is, get them tested. Because that's the one good thing about being on a professional sports team is that there's this endless pile of money that they can use for testing and make sure that the players don't have it, but the general public doesn't have access to this kind of medical service, let's call it, where they're not going to get tested every day, or the cost is prohibitive to do that. But with professional sports teams, it's just a matter of doing business that way. So that's where athletes have that advantage, where they can actually get this stuff done. And if you test a player, a player would need to probably get tested before he gets on a plane to go to his city, but he's also probably going to have to get tested once he gets there as well. And as long as both of those tests come back negative, then I assume there wouldn't be any kind of an issue. And then he would go into the regular testing protocol, which I'm assuming the NHL's testing protocol will be the same as Major League Baseball, which is every other day at the least, if not every day, but probably every other day, and go from there. But again, the NHL is I don't think they've selected their bubble cities yet. I know there were a couple of them that were supposed to be in Canada. And Canada has done a far superior job to the United States in terms of managing the virus. Their numbers are actually flattening, whereas our numbers around the country are spiking, and Mike Pence is lying about them flattening. But that's been the issue for the NHL is where are they going to have these bubbles, and we're going to have to find out, because we don't really know yet.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, maybe have it everything up in Canada. They have enough rinks. That would be the thing to do. I mean, hold on a second. There we go.
Is that you?
But that might be a good place to do. That's me. That's just my computer. Well, that might be an idea. Just have everything up in Canada.
Well, I don't know. I'm looking at a story now that Vancouver is out as a potential hub city. Because they're basically looking for a city that has a low infection rate of COVID-19, the ability to have a place where obviously there's big hotels that are close to practice facilities and game arenas. So I think a lot of people thought Vancouver was going to be one of these places, but apparently that's not going to happen.
Okay, well, that's not understandable, I guess. I mean,
yeah, right now, from what what they're saying, Edmonton and Toronto are two of the leading potential bubble cities. Las Vegas is another one. Despite the coronavirus numbers rising in Nevada. And I think Chicago and Los Angeles also are in the running, although Los Angeles right now is another place where the numbers are spiking.
Sure.
So those are really probably the 5 cities that we're looking at.
Okay, brother. That's another show, and we're done.
Woohoo!
My name is Rob Leonard. He is Tim Leonard. This is From the Press Box, here every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Of course, it becomes a podcast later on if you want to hear, or you just caught part of it, or some people just listen via podcast. That's the new thing that kids like to do, brother. We thank Sean Novak for keeping this all together, and we'll talk to you next Monday with more sports. Take care, and bye-bye.